Let's move on to consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented in an earlier council action. Actions may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. So let's go to the first item of, for example, I have just want to ask a question on item F, but I don't need to have it pulled for a separate vote. Is there anyone that needs something pulled for a separate vote? Linda.
I think we should pull D for a separate vote.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Is there anyone else for a separate vote? Seeing no one else, Councilmember Medina?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to have a comment or a brief discussion on item E and item G.
E and G. Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I thought we were just pulling items. I just have a comment on E and F.
No, this is good. So E and F, so we already have that. So E and F will have comments, as well as G, and D will be pulled for a separate action item. So let's just go to those with comments. Let's go to item E first, which is adopt a resolution authorizing the application for and receipt of state California local early action planning grants programs in the amount of $150,000. Councilmember Medina and Councilmember Mason. Marty, if you go first.
Sure. I just wanted to pull this or have a brief discussion on this so that we do acknowledge that during these financial difficulties that we have staff that are pursuing grants, and just shedding a little bit of light on those efforts, and if staff can perhaps just a really short discussion or statement on that item. Thank you.
Thank you. And why don't we go to Councilmember Mason? So when they're doing that, if there's any additional questions, they're all done at once. Councilmember Mason.
Yeah, I actually am echoing Councilmember Medina's comment, and I know at one of the previous council meetings, I think it was Director Tan that said, we actually do apply to grants, and we've all, as council members, really encouraged staff to tell that story. So I'm really happy to see this on the agenda, and thank you to the staff that's working on this. That's it.
Thank you. Any staff, city manager, who would you like to direct it to? I'm sorry. Councilmember David. Hold on, city manager. Councilmember Davis, you raised your hand.
Yeah, just on that same point, I think we had talked about it at one point of the staff keeping record of all the grants we applied for, and we didn't ask for them to go backwards, but to actually start keeping record of it going forward. So is there a plan for that? And you can go with those.
Thank you so we can get it all done at once. Thank you. City manager.
Hi. Thank you, Jovan, Grogan. Yes, there is a plan for tracking grants, and we are doing that. And I will bring Pamela Wu into the room. So Melissa, if you will do that, and we will have her respond to the council members' questions, since she did a lot of the work on acquiring the grant. And Pamela Wu is our housing manager within the Community and Economic Development Department. Planning and housing manager.
Good evening, Ms. Wu.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. If I can provide a short background on the LEAP grant. This is an over-the-counter, non-competitive awarding an amount of about $150,000 from the state, encouraging city to complete the next housing element and also to do necessary planning work to streamline housing activity. If you remember last year, we brought you forward another grant application, the SB2 grant application, which the city was very lucky to be awarded for the amount of $160,000. So this will augment the funding that we have already received in a total amount of about $310,000.
Thank you. Did that answer a colleague's questions? Okay. If so, let's move on to item F, adopt resolution approving fiscal year 2021 City Council priority focus areas and related strategic initiatives. The only thing that I was bringing up when I read through the document I saw one item that we had, and that was, it brought up traffic calming. And if you remember, my memory goes that we went about traffic calming, speed bumps, paving, and it went back and forth a little bit. And so we came up with my memory is a inclusive overview of the traffic calming process and how it's initiated, how it's done, how it's brought forward to the TSBC, et cetera. But listed in the document, it says speed bumps, repaving, which repaving to me doesn't have relevancy to traffic calming, though everybody would say, if you pave it, maybe, it'll be better. So I just want to review that to say, my understanding was it was traffic calming and it was more of a global perspective on that. So I'm suggesting that be stated for that, and that the speed bumps, because that has to do with traffic calming, and the repaving, which doesn't have anything to do with traffic calming, that be eliminated when the resolution is passed, and just have the overview of the traffic calming measures. Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you. That's how I understood it. So that little revision there would be appropriate. But I also wanted to thank all of the staff for the amount of work that went into this. We've come a long way from in the last couple of years with getting to this point. And although we do have this list, at some point we still need to touch back on it and set which of those that we really want to get done first, second, third, fourth, fifth, because it's still too many to try to get done in a year. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, and I'm looking forward to when we'll touch base on this. And I think it's just a great way that we're continuing trying to get input from our council on things that they feel that they could contribute to.
Thank you. Councilmember Mason, is your hand up for this item, or? Okay. Go ahead, please. You're muted.
Okay, thank you. So I agree with what Mayor Medina said as well. That was my understanding. I just wanted to ask around the strong governance. My understanding on the strong governance was it was going to look at our governance overall. So our council processes, policies, our commissions, our committee structures, and then we also talked about like training maybe twice a year. So I just wanted to just say it wasn't limited to just committees, but how can we strengthen at every level each of our governing boards? And I also just wanted to say that I know this takes a lot of time, and I really hope that as the city builds up its senior team, I know there's been a lot of transitions. I really do hope that some of these are day-to-day operations, and in the future don't come to the council, and we can really focus on policy and ordinances. Because I really think that as we operate and function at a higher level, that this is work hopefully staff will need to do in the future for us. We can focus on broader policy issues. And that also falls under just strengthening our governance structure. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nobody else, we're going to move on to G. Adopt a resolution terminating the local emergency declared on December 3rd, 2019. And that's the Crestmore Canyon slope. That was the stability project. That's up at the top of San Bruno Avenue near Glenview. And so Councilmember Medina and then Councilmember Mason.
Right. It's great that this project is done. We were getting updates at our council meetings about how progress is, and I thought this would be an opportunity to acknowledge that it's done. That canyon face there is in a much safer condition, and it's an example of how something that costs that much money could be not in our budget, and it's likely something similar. Every year there's something, either the lights go out in one part of the neighborhood, a box culvert blows out on another part of our city, and it's just something to be aware of and acknowledge that the emergency is over, the work is completed, and thanks to our staff for taking care of that.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, Linda, you're right. Yeah, you didn't wish to speak on that one. Thank you for reminding me. And yes, it is thanks to staff for their quick effort, expediting and stabilizing, as well as putting up a guardrail, which I think people are happy to see, so that you just don't have that huge drop off the side of the sidewalk. Okay, so those are the items that we wanted to have comments on. That would take care of everything under consent with the exception of D. Do I have any action from council to accept all items with the exception of D with the modification to the traffic calming?
I move that
Through the
we
chair.
consent.
I was just going to say through the exception of the traffic speed bump and also the strong governance, because I think, Linda, you wanted committee removed?
No, she wanted to make sure it was inclusive of all those.
Yeah. Yeah. So however you want to word that.
Okay. So noted. Vice Mayor?
So, so just if I could get a confirmation from staff then that they understand the modifications that those two items will take, and then I'll make the motion to approve the remainder of the consent.
City Attorney, City Manager, is that clear on our motion, or
Yep.
what our discussion to a motion?
Yes, totally clear, with one caveat. The conversation that the council had with regard to strong governance really centered around committees. But we understand the concept that Councilmember Mason is articulating, and with your affirmative vote, we will draft up a strategic initiative that is encompassing all the aspects that were discussed, and we will be sure to provide that to council, and if any amendments are needed, we can handle that at a later date.
Okay.
Okay.
Vice Mayor?
All right. In that case, I will make a motion to approve the remainder of the consent, everything except item D.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vice Mayor and Councilmember Davis. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Mason,
Aye.
Councilmember Medina,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're going to go now to the item that was pulled, item D, adopt resolution approving the San Bruno Community Foundation 2021 budget. Councilmember Mason.
Hi. So I really appreciate, I want to start by saying I appreciate all the work that's being done around the Community Foundation and for the community. I think this is a really unique opportunity that our city has that a lot of other cities don't have. And I preface it with that because I know that this is delicate, but I want to ask that in future reports, including the annual report, I've reviewed a few of them, that we start receiving as part of the budget process some metrics. I know that this is being worked on already based on a conversation that I had with Leslie. But I think it's important that when we're giving amounts of $300,000 and more, that we confirm that those are being received by the community, that they're made for. And I know that within the structure right now of the Community Foundation, they do receive reports and they're very responsible about them. But I'd love those to be shared with us as well. The second request that I'd like to make tonight is that when I look at the budget report and I see one page of $70 million that we're approving tonight, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable, especially given the deficit that the city's in, the repercussions that are going to be felt by many people within the city. But just on a regular basis, $70 million is a lot of money. And so I'd request that similar to the city council's budget approval, that we have combined or joint study sessions, at least 2 prior to the budget approval, where we actually have a discussion, we can ask questions around the budget. I think it would provide for some better understanding, not just for the council, but for the public, who often questions where this money has gone and where it's going. And in reading the bylaws, the budget approval is one of the responsibilities of the city council. And so if I had support or how, I'm not really sure what the process would be for that, but I think some study sessions would be really fruitful for the community, because so far it appears, from what I've read, that the foundation is doing what they were intended to do, and they're doing a great job. And I think this is part of the story that we need to make sure the public is aware of. But also, as being the accountability for the community foundation, we also need to ensure that we are aware of what we're voting to approve. And that's it. Those are the two areas I wanted to comment on tonight. Thank you.
Staff have any comments, or colleagues? Or maybe I should ask staff and or the foundation director, but Jovan?
Understand the request. I think we can handle that through another avenue, but should the full city council be in favor of that, we can absolutely build that into the budget process next year.
And
Councilmember,
this is for next year, to be clear.
Okay, let's have any discussion. Councilmember Medina.
Yes. I support having an opportunity to have a more in-depth examination of the budget. So I don't know if we would need two, or I don't know if one option would be to have a subcommittee to sit in on a couple other meetings, but I think that it would be beneficial to have some overlapping of discussion on the budget.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Thank you. So I'm thinking back to the very early days of when we formed the foundation, and there was lively debate around what City Council's role would be in managing the foundation. And I very strongly advocated for having the council keep as much as possible their fingers out of that organization's affairs, primarily because the concern was that the city would somehow monopolize the funds that were in there when they were intended to be a direct benefit to the public. And so the vision that I think we ultimately went with was an organization that was directly responsible to the public. They would respond to the public's needs. And I think they've done an excellent job at meeting that condition. The listening campaigns that were done around the rec center, they have to follow open meeting rules just like we do. They have a separate finance advisory committee that meets also in public. And so there is a lot of public process that takes place in the development of their policies, of their decisions. And I'm very much aware of where a lot of the money is going. I track, what they're doing with the scholarships. The first year that the scholarships were done, I participated in the selection committee, so I've had firsthand knowledge of how that works. I worked with the Cappuccino Alumni Association, so I know how the grant process works and how those funds have to be reported back. They have reporting requirements. I do agree with Councilmember Mason on the reporting aspect, where if information is coming in, it would be nice to make that a little bit more public, because I don't think any of that information is shared. We do see the foundation's annual report, but there's a lot of input that goes in. The reporting that they require is not necessarily as visible. So I would support that piece. But just in terms of involving the council in their decision-making process, I don't feel that it's necessary. I think it would interfere with their independence, and so I would not support that part of it.
And I'm also, City Clerk's told me, we're going to go to Councilmember Davis, and there's a member of the community.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I probably echo Michael's comments as well. Any council member can attend any one of those public meetings. We can participate in that. I do agree that we've elected this board to really do that job. So I'm not there's part of me that says the average member of this community has no idea what's going on with that, but that's by their choice. I do feel, and I've made this comment to our city manager a few times, that we can really publicize the foundation, their meetings. Our staff has done a great job on getting out communication. Maybe Jovan, in one of your newsletters, so we can talk about it. But I would really love to see a video that we can post. It could be available on our city website. It could be available on their page. It really talks about the foundation, talks about what they've done, talks about and has readily available the documents and the data that the residents need to see. Those are my.
Okay, Melissa, can we bring in the member of the public, please?
Yes, Mr. Goldberg, your hand was up, but I see it's now down. If you want to speak, will you please raise your hand to indicate that was correct? Okay, I don't see the hand raised.
Okay. Councilmember Mason, you have your hand up again, and then Rico's going to talk.
Yeah, at this time, I'm not, I want to be clear, I don't think I had said, and I'm not advocating for the council making the decision on the budget, but I think adding it to a consent calendar is really not enough to approve a budget of $70 million. And that's, so a study session would allow us to ask any questions that we have on the one-page document of, representing $70 million. And so I just want to be clear that that's really more of the intention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I mean, that could be something where it's a conduct of business on the regular scheduled agenda, which is more opportunity if the concern is having community folks participate or watch or listen. When we have a study session, as you know, the attendance and participation level is not significant. For me personally, I was kind of a little bit on the other side of what the vice mayor said back when it was formed about having more council involvement. But they are a 501c3. I know sometimes council members of past or whatever might say, well, let's allocate here or here. We're fortunate when that community foundation goes out and says, and they're noted for saying what they're going to do and doing what they say, and getting sponsorships for Community Day, getting other grants or other funds. It's because they're their own entity. They don't have the interest. They don't have the political motivation by us stepping in. So in hindsight, looking at it, I think us not being engaged in their budget or how they will spend the money, because ultimately it does come to us, and that's how it was established. So I could see it coming back, like Councilmember Mason said, where it is under a conduct of business. That gives it more highlight, that gives it more discussion, that gives it more opportunity. So for that, I could see that. And then Councilmember Mason already said, as far as metrics, those are already being worked on. So, okay, is there anything else on this topic? Okay, so we have item D under consent still to approve. Is there a motion?
If there's no further discussion, motion to approve it?
Davis,
I'll second Laura's motion.
One of you two.
I would say I'll second that. I know, okay. That's fine.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Mason.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Thank you,
Motion
everyone.
carries.